What up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Laud Times podcast. Little on the sad side here, guys. We don't have a producer, so therefore it's not as cool. No music intro. Not really my type of strengths and skill set, to do those type of things for the pod. But anyways, fellas, thanks for joining me. We're missing the other two guys, but we're gonna have an amazing episode. Thanks to Edgar, Double Nations, always amazing outline. We'll start with you, Edgar. How you doing up there in Arlington?
Doing good, doing good. It's been raining out here the past 2 days. Been real lazy, but I don't know. It's good. It's finally feeling like not summer.
Bro, I saw your message about like trying to get some caldo de res and some Liga MX. Andabas antojado.
Yeah. Sure.
You could have watched the Cowboys, bro, and had a terrible day and just enjoyed the little calito.
Oh man.
Lou, how are you, my friend?
What's up, fellas? Great to be back. Dennis, we miss you.
Yeah,
Alfred,
no,
we miss you, man. Come back.
no kidding. Dennis is checking out his beloved Dallas Mavericks. So interesting. That man is not a Dallas Cowboys fan, but he's a Dallas Mavericks and Texas Rangers hardcore. He's a big fan of both of those teams. But he's at the game, so we're going to be missing him tonight. And then Alfred is out celebrating. He's doing his thing on vacation at the moment. So we'll see him back sometime soon, but ultimately, we got a heck of a pod to talk about. There's a lot of cool stuff that happened for Tigres this weekend. First starting with the victory at Tijuana against Xolos. The battle of the rotations going out in the frontera between Paunovic and Osorio, but we ended up pulling through and got the victory. And then Las Amazonas also having a good game to. I don't know. I'm curious about those thoughts there because I saw a lot of mixed emotions about the game that ended the Amazonas season, which left them in second place. But I'll toss it over to you now, Edgar, to kick us off with today's segment.
Alrighty, we're gonna start with Tigres men's side, Cholos versus Tigres recap. Friday night, Los Tigres sent Osorio's Hounds to the kennel as they traveled to Tijuana to secure 3 points and fight for a spot in the top 4 of the league table. Although they traveled with absences, they were able to finally lock in and end an 8-match streak that Cholos had, which was holding on to not losing at home. Nico Ibanez opened up the scoreboard for the evening with a singular goal of the first half, coming in at the 34th minute. In the second half, Bruneta scored in the 58th minute, with Chicha Sanchez delivering his first assist with the first team. And to seal the deal, Marcelo Flores scored the final goal of the night in the 82nd minute, assisted by Diego Lainez. Are Tigres finally back? Let's discuss.
A couple of things from that first introduction to that segment. You think we're 4 to 5 years past the last era. You hear Chicha Sanchez delivering an assist. You get Marcelo Flores sealing the deal with a Lainez assist and Nico Ibanez opening up the scoreboard. What an introduction to that segment. Have we arrived, Lou? What type of game did you think that we had? Just quick overall impression, and then we'll get a little bit more in depth with like lineups and whatnot. What was your immediate thoughts after the game concluded and we got the 3-0 victory?
I'd say decent game, but nothing to get excited about. There was nothing in that game that really leads me to believe that we're gonna finish strong and head into Liguilla with wind in our sails. I thought it was a good win, but at times, Xolos dominated the game, and so there's always concerns. That game, if Xolos scores early, could have gone the other way on us. We could have been on the losing end of that. So to me, there's not much to get excited about. I do think that it is a positive that we're getting contributions from Chicha. We're getting contributions from Lainez, that Nico Ibanez got back on the scoring column. He had been in a pretty severe drought. And so seeing players like that contribute, I think, is definitely a positive. But we'll see. I think we're going to find out what we're really made of when we face Toluca and when we face Cruz Azul. I think those will be the tougher test. If we can finish strong against those two, then I think we'll we can echo Edgar's words. We're back and head into Liguilla on a very positive note. But I think the jury's still out. We could technically lose to Toluca and Cruz Azul and then really end on a negative note, on a sour note, and then not be so enthused for Liguilla.
Absolutely, especially because it was sort of a critical moment as we were discussing last pod episode, as we were headed into these last three games. We were talking about how many points we were going to be able to pull off, and there was a big, you know, disparity, and as far as what everybody was thinking about the points that we were going to get, and ultimately, most people thought that we weren't going to have the best of games when we went to Tijuana, because historically we don't have the best of games, and that is due to the turf most of the time, because we're not able to establish the pace and the tempo of our possession game. But something that was very interesting to me was the fact that at the beginning stages of Paunovic's era, when he took over the team, we didn't have a lot of the possession, and we handed that over to the opposing team. And to me, it was when we looked a lot better. And as we transitioned to a possession or a more dominant possession, we started looking a lot less aggressive at times, and sort of maintaining that fast pace that we had whenever Paunovic first arrived. Edgar, talk to me about how you feel after the 3-0 victory. What was your impressions about the play, as well as what Paunovic did with some of the rotations, which obviously we got Chicho Sanchez started, which almost got him the full minutes required for the youth rule, and then we saw Bruneta and Cordova starting, with Nico Ibanez getting the nod up top, Osvaldo Rodriguez starting at the left back for Angulo, who was out on accumulations of yellows, Chuy Garza starting at right back due to the immature play and, I guess, stupid moment that Aquino had the previous game where he committed a handball. And then obviously Guido Pizarro and Joaquim, with the tandem of Carioca and Nando Gorriaran in the middle.
Yeah, so I think we put out a very solid starting 11 given the circumstances where, Gignac was unavailable. We had two in the back line unavailable. I was really impressed with the overall performance of the team. There was some elements where I wish, we could have gotten a little bit more out of. Specifically, Osvaldo Rodriguez was underperforming yet again. It's starting to be cause for concern. But I did really enjoy seeing Diego Reyes be able to step in when Carioca had to sub out. I think Pizarro did well back in the midfield.
Yeah, absolutely. That was, and we're gonna get into a little bit about that pretty soon. I'm gonna read some of these comments because they're pretty interesting. Start off with Dennis at the Mavs games. He quote tweeted our live that's going on at the moment. Just retweeted it. He is watching Luka Doncic, his boy, do his thing. So he's checking in. Got David down from the 956. Nico is back, meaning you, Lou. You disappeared for a couple episodes, and as soon as Nico Ibanez score, you show up. And that's what Peter also is chiming in about. You can show up again. You can show your face because, like we mentioned,
back, man. He's
Nico
back.
Ibanez is back. He opened up the scoreboard. What does that mean for him ultimately, Lou? I know you're a big fan, not so much of like defending him per se, but you have always been reluctant to, because most of our fan base is really quickly to judge and point the finger at Nico Ibanez when he doesn't score a goal, when he doesn't score his chances, and obviously that's due to possibly lack of form because he doesn't get the best of minutes, or Paunovic puts him in really late in the game, expecting him to solve and put us ahead or tie a game. But you've always been adamant about, justifying with due reason about the wing play. So what does that mean for him and his confidence as we take on the last part of the season?
Definitely, you said it. Big confidence booster for him, getting back on the score sheet, knowing that he can provide some offensive output for us, be productive even when Gignac's out. We're gonna need him. Gignac can definitely play the full 90, but there'll be times when we need to plug him in to give Gignac some rest. So it's great to have a guy like Nico being able to give us some offensive production. I think our wing play is slowly improving. And so you're going to see Nico be more productive as well. The crosses were a little bit better in this game in Tijuana. And so you saw that. You saw him getting a few more looks, better looks. I've always said he's elite in the air. If you can get him a good cross, either from play or from a corner kick, I think he can deliver the goods. So it's just a matter of us getting some decent play out of our wingers, and when we can provide that, he's going to be around to score. And you saw it too with Brunetta. Brunetta has kind of improved. That's going to help out our strikers as well. So hopefully this means that we're all kind of moving in the right direction. All of our strikers, all of our attacking mids, we're all kind of moving in the right direction to be able to make it all click for Liguilla.
100%. And the one of the things that sticks out is obviously Edgar is the inclusion or the persistence now of Panovich on playing Cordova and Brunetta together. Brunetta's catching heat. Cordova, we've been asking for him to be in the starting lineup, and even if he doesn't have the greatest of games, he knows how to pick his plays and choose his plays in order to get involved and either set somebody up with an actual assist or a hockey assist and get a play going. So, what are your thoughts about now Paunovic listening to the entire fan base and getting these two guys to play on the field together?
I mean, I wish we would have done it sooner. I think we would have gotten a lot better results had that been happening a lot earlier in the season. But I think it's great. I think it is working, as you mentioned. Sometimes we don't get the best out of Cordova 100%, but when he is on the field, he is contributing so much more. And I mean, you see it with Brunetta as well. I think he's contributing there in that partnership.
Yeah, and there's still more to grow with, right? I think that like you said, a little bit too late, but now that we have it, the best part of the season is where they can catch, fire and ultimately, give us that push. And we talked about it last week. We're gonna need Brunetta in order to, make some noise in La Liguilla. And speaking about Liguilla, Peter here has an excellent, a little topic of discussion that I want to get into, especially Lou. We're going to be missing Carioca. It's been announced he's going to be out for the Toluca game as well as the Cruz Azul game. So, we've talked, I mentioned a little bit about the possession, how at the beginning of Pauno's era, we didn't have as much possession. Then we transitioned back to dominate possession at games. And even though we didn't have the best games, and then this game against Xolos, we didn't have possession. And, we didn't play our best game per se, but we did look a lot better in the counter aspect. We did look a lot better in letting the other team, in this case Xolos, pass the ball around like they have been doing this season. So Peter here is mentioning and that he wants us to talk about how we're going to be doing when teams give us the protagonism. He's saying we saw it in the America final. They let us try and propose a game plan and just sit back and counter. How do you feel about his overall topic, and then also with the removal of Carioca as we face these last two games due to his injury?
I mean, it's a known fact that we struggle when teams sit in a low block, and we haven't been able to figure that out. It's a definite concern for us as fans, the fact that we don't generate very many chances when teams are sitting on a low block and then waiting to counter us. Our transition defense in the past has been suspect as well. So it definitely, when teams allow us to have possession and they sit lower, defend in a low block, to the under Pauno, I haven't seen us really break any defenses down that well. And it goes back to our wingers not making decent crosses, not enough movement in the final third. There's just a lot of details there that we haven't been able to fix. So to me, that is a big red flag in Liguilla. How are we going to react when there's no space? I think part of the reason why we were so successful against Xolos was that Xolos was, very keen on attacking us and giving us space behind their back line, right? And that's where Brunetta would thrive and some of our wingers would thrive. And I think that's part of the reason why Antuna hasn't been successful either. There is no space for him to use his speed. And so to me, I feel like that's going to be a big issue in Liguilla, especially once we face really smart teams like Cruz Azul, like America, that are very well coached. we're gonna have to be really sharp, and we'll see. I think the jury's still out on that. There's definite concerns, especially with Pauno's system. His tactics haven't been that fluid, and I think that's definitely a concern for all of us.
What do we feel about, making a point to what Peter's bringing up in this topic, as well as this game against Cholos? What was so different, and what is also due to Paunovic's game plan, or how he implemented this game plan? I know I saw people, I saw Alfred share a meme that he didn't really do anything, but what specifically did he do different, or what did he choose this game differently that ultimately led us to a 3-0 victory? Was it his selection of players? Was it circumstantial due to Carioca's injury? And, Cholos also attacking and moving the ball around. What do you guys think contributed to that factor of allowing us to create the chances and ultimately score 3 goals, which I don't think we have scored 3 goals all season. I may be wrong on that. Might have been one. So I'm going to have to double check that as you guys are discussing this. But ultimately 3-0 with a shutout and, offensively a good offensive night. That leaves a lot of, like, not necessarily question marks, but a lot of, like, things that I'm curious about, about Paunovic and what he really had to say in this game that made us look differently.
I'm with Alfred. I don't think Pauno did anything different per se. I think a lot of it was just happenstance, circumstances, and Osorio sort of, through some of his rotaciones, kind of influencing the game in that sense. He had a center back playing left fullback, so it affects your speed. It affects how you defend. With Chicha and Lainez being in there, kind of speedy, quick wingers. I think it just played into our hands, having all that space. I think had Osorio changed up his game plan a little bit, I think it would have affected us a lot more. We would have struggled a lot more, especially what you said earlier, how much we struggle in that with those pitch conditions. And so, to me, it's not anything Pauno did. I think it's what Osorio did through his rotaciones and his game plan that allowed us to win that game. Especially at certain points, I just saw Xolos kind of dominating play. There's stretches there like 15, 20 minutes where Xolos was kind of on top, but weren't able to put away their chances.
What about, Edgar, the substitutions, right? Like, we sort of complained, at least the later part of the season, meaning, maybe the 6 games prior to this one. We had just not the best choices of substitution, whether that was due to timing, some players that were left on the bench. This time around, he seemed like he got it right. So to me, that's something that at least he should get some credit. But what do you feel about Marcelo getting the minutes, coming off the bench, getting his goal, and then Alainez getting an assist, and what he did with these substitutions?
Yeah, I do think he's been improving somewhat when it does come to the substitutions. I know for the first half of the season they were highly questionable. A lot of them didn't make sense. We're getting a little bit better in that aspect. For example, you guys hear me?
You're good. Yeah. Not anymore.
Okay. So like I said, he was getting better in regards to the substitutions. I mean, just putting Drake instead of going in for Vigon was a much better move than we would have expected at the first part of the season.
Yeah, I feel like he's quit now on, maybe not quit's the right word, but he's identified now that Vigon is not a very much used if you're still trying to, like, compete in the game and, create chances and find some offensive production. I don't know if you agree with that, Lou, but I think that now the sub or the repetition of either if he has to sub somebody out, if Carioca has to go out, he's moved Pizarro a few more times than we've seen in the past. Going back to the last couple of coaches, and now taking part in that defensive midfield, and he just gives you a different style of game, right? Even though they play similar and make dictating pace, complete different game styles between Pizarro and Carioca. But we know Pizarro can fill in the role there, and that's going to be something that we're going to have to figure out and how to play without Carioca. And like I said, most people, from what I come across online, as far as reactions after the game and winning the 3-0, most people were like, "Oh, did you guys notice that Gignac didn't play, Aquino didn't play, Carioca was subbed out, and we won 3-0, and like we look better and yada yada." And so, how much of that is due to those guys actually like not playing in a game versus again how circumstantial the game turned out to be?
Yeah, to me, that's a really bad take because
Chicharron?
yeah, I mean, come on, they've been your best players. I mean, they've been your most consistent players, and then to go and just base it off one decent performance that we've had against a Xolos team that goes through a lot of rotaciones. I think it's not fair. It's not a fair comment. I don't think there's anything there. Like I said, if you were to play the same starting 11 the next two games and they kill it, then you might have an argument, right? But there's just the sample size is too small. I mean, it's you're just going off of one game. It's circumstances, right? The lineup that Osorio put out, the tactics, and just the performance. Sometimes teams have a bad night, and so to say, hey, you pull these guys and now you're awesome, it's not a good take in my opinion. You're definitely gonna miss Carioca for what he brings to the table, and Pauno is correct in bringing up Pizarro into that slot. You don't want Vigon taking on that responsibility at CDM. It's just not the right move. It would be a good move if you have a lead. For example, you have a lead and you want to maintain that lead and you want to maybe add some more goals to the score sheet. But if you're down or the score's tied, I don't see Vigon being the answer. So I think that's the right move. You move Pizarro into that slot. He's very familiar with it. Obviously, he's going to be more defensive minded. He's not going to provide as much control and distribution and that sort of thing that Carioca brings. But you're bringing in a player that's very comfortable in that slot. And you're not missing a whole lot by bringing in Diego Reyes playing center back with Joaquin. So I think that's the winning combination there. But as far as Aquino, I mean, he's been so solid all year. You got to have him there. And then Gignac at the 9, obviously, being the starter. So, I mean, it's just to me to say, hey, you pull these guys out and all of a sudden you're great. I mean, it's like you're blaming Gignac for the bad performance. I think we've got bigger problems, and it's not those guys.
Yeah, how do you feel about that, Edgar? As far as Gignac, not only was he didn't get minutes, but he didn't even travel to Xolos, and he stayed in Monterrey.
So I mean, we talked about it last week. I kind of expected it that he was going to be rested. I didn't expect him to stay in Monterrey, and to me, that could have been a very fatal mistake, because your only other option would have been Ociel, who's not really played there other than maybe twice. This is not someone who you could say, okay, this is a dependable player that I can plug in if I need to. You can say that about Nico Ibanez, and you see that throughout his entire time at Tigres, but for me, that was a highly questionable decision, and that's not something that I would have done personally.
Yeah, and that's the thing that it emphasizes and resonates with me is the fact that you were gonna have to improvise with Osiel Herrera, which we like Osiel Herrera and what he brings to the table as far as his upside, being young and still developing, scoring goals, his contribution to our offense during his time at Tigres, and then if you weren't going to choose him, you have the other improvised player who is not getting good minutes at the wing position, who won the scoring title, playing in the position of as an attacker, Nuriel Antuna, which I probably would have been a little bit curious to see that, just because the guy's not fitting in at our squad at the moment with the type of style that we've gotten to play, as well as if Linus is getting an assist, and obviously Linus is getting going to get the nod as far as getting the minutes off the bench. If Chicha Sanchez gets an assist or Marcelo scores, like, these guys are actually producing and contributing to the production of offense, that they're going to get the nod over Antuna. So I would have been a little bit curious to see that improvisation. But ultimately, I think that I'm with you, Edgar. I think that, if he's not going to play, the camaraderie aspect, the leadership aspect, that would have been a great, a guy like Gignac, you always can be in need of, even if he's just on the bench. We know the guy wants to start. We know the guy wants to play at all times. But just to blatantly say, hey, stay home, like, I feel like he's past that. I mean, I just don't know how much strategy or how much rest he could be getting by staying at home if he's staying up and watching the game. I think that he would contribute more by being around the team. And I feel like he doesn't need that type of special treatment to say, hey, stay home, enjoy your night, sleep out in your own bed. I will need you for the next, Wednesday game, which when you have a deep squad in terms of like players, that you can still find minutes for him to rest and moderate minutes. So like, yeah, it's fine. Don't play him. But I don't know, leaving him at home, I was kind of like, that's not the best, move by Paunovic and the coaching staff.
Plus, you give more fuel to the media, the local media in Monterrey, who love all that chicharrón.
Bro, they have been on such a tear. I don't know how people still watch that. I've literally, like, I don't follow any of it, but like, the feature on Twitter, like, once, like, so if I don't, like, for example, if I don't check my Twitter, throughout the day, let's call it, and I just check it at nighttime, like, I go for you because it obviously tailors to my algorithm of like Tigre stuff. And if I don't see stuff that you guys posted earlier in the day, at least it'll pop up on that, because usually, your following is more chronological. And I don't follow any of them, man, and they still pop up somehow, some of those guys, and I'm like, I don't understand how people still watch those people. And like, I even got to my uncle's house, like middle of the day, and my man's watching, multimedias, and I was like, dude, like, what are you getting out of watching this? Like, they're talking about like, Paunovic is not playing. He broke the locker room with Gignac and Carioca, and I'm like, dude, like, this is so 1998, 1999, when like Diablo and Luis Matador Hernandez were getting in a fight. You know what I mean? Like, that would sell then, because the technology aspect. A player can come out and like, tell his own version now with all the social media. And I'm like, I just don't get how that still thrives in Monterrey for chicharrón from all sorts of flavors to like be a prominent, TV spot.
Clickbait, man. Clickbait. That's
It's
all
so
it is
bad. It's so bad. So that's, guys who are tuning in and watching, that's the story, that Gignac, no longer fits because he's in disagreement with Paunovic, and he wants to play starter minutes, and he was not going to be cool with going to Tijuana and not playing. Like, come on, guys. The guy has shown nothing but professionalism since he's been here. The guy, might not be, have the speed or agility that he once had, but he's probably in the best shape of his life for a 39-year-old. I feel like every 39-year-old or even 35-year-olds in this world would probably be, want to be in his shape. So let's not knock this dude's professionalism as far as what he does with our squad. It's ultimately, something to always be proud of. So it's just bad. Dennis chiming in with Garza, Angulo, Joaquin, and Aquino backline. That's a little bold. He said it's not happening. Obviously, I'm gonna table that discussion for a little bit further down the pod, Dennis. But I got you. I definitely got you, because that's something that it's definitely worth talking about as far as athletic aspect. One guy I want to focus on before we move and transition to another part of the pod, guys, is Fernando Gorriarán. Number one in passes completed with 35 passes in that game against Xolos. Number one in recoveries with 6, 8 out of 11 precision passes, and then 3 out of 5 duels won. Has he been the best player all season?
Without a doubt, without a doubt, our MVP, man. He's been he's been so good this season, man. I think he's only going to get better these next two games because he'll have to do a little more work with Pizarro being more of a defensive guy who kind of likes to drop deep at times. I think he'll get a lot more involved. So yeah, man, our MVP, I think by far.
What do you think, Edgar?
I think for sure. I think we spend a lot of time, kind of wishing that we would get him back to that Santos form. And I think under the radar, he definitely has. If you don't stop and look at the stats, it's a little bit difficult to notice just because the results that he just is getting aren't the best. But when it comes to individual talent and the individual talent that's kind of been getting us out of a couple of difficult situations, it's definitely attributed a lot to what Fernando Guerreran has been doing this season, and I think he's been great and he's been killing it.
Lou, would you say that, because Edgar just said something about him being at Santos, and for the longest, especially last season and even a little bit the season prior, where I never doubted his effort and hustle, but one of the things that we always talked about is that, he was running around, like with chicken with his head off, and ultimately not being critical in his involvement. When his first season, when he first arrived, he scored quite a bit of goals. He had, good amount of assists. This season, I feel like his form hasn't been like, or has had to be questioned because he is doing a lot of the legwork of that midfield. And maybe that's not transitioning to goals or assists like he probably had in past seasons. But I think his defensive work rate and even like his pressuring, his anticipation has gotten a ton better. Where, like you just said, like he might be our MVP this season. I think a lot of people would agree. How much of that role, was due to obviously Profe Ortega arriving, but also, Nando just getting comfortable with this squad and taking a different type of leadership role within the squad.
I think it's been a mix of things. Obviously, El Profe being around has helped him a ton, but I think he having some kind of off season where he was able to kind of look at film, I think has helped him quite a bit. Because I think one of his biggest problems was not being in the right spots. Definitely running a lot, definitely covering a lot of ground, but not being at the right spots at the right moment. And I think that was what was messing him up a lot. And I think now he's picking his spots. He needs he when he, defensively we need him. He's at the right spots to be able to recover the ball, make tackles, clearances, and then offensively with Brunetta kind of being not so great this year, I think he's picked up a lot of his workload as well. And I think he's partnering a lot, especially towards that right wing with our wingers, and also being able to generate some chances there in the final third, which we weren't seeing that from him. And I'm okay with him not scoring as long as he's helping in the build up. He's helping us, offensively generate chances, and I think he's doing that this season, and it's showing because you can see some of those partnerships he's formed and how that's leading into us getting more shots, our strikers having more opportunities to score. Even though there's still a lot of improvement from our wingers that we need, but I think he's setting that up for them at least.
Yeah, I feel like if our wing play is just a tad bit better, then he would probably shine even more because he wouldn't have to work so hard in order to be so involved in the creation offensively. That ultimately it would take off pressure by him, like, showing up from the second line into the last line of attack and probably scoring the goals or assisting a lot more. So I think overall form of the rest of our squad has affected his season for him to shine even more offensively. And I think that we talked about it in a couple previous pods. I think that, having his best season, I even said it out loud. I was like, it could be a wasted season for Fernando because ultimately the form of our squad and the coaching influence that we've had from Panovic over the last 10 games or so, or even more, weren't the best. And ultimately, that also has a detriment to Fernando Guerreran. But productivity wise. I think on the defensive side, his work rate, his involvement in offensive creation, from a further back role has been awesome. And I think that most people would agree with your statement that he has been our MVP this season.
Hopefully, Pauno allows Cordova to play a lot more and possibly even start, because I think he's got great chemistry with Cordova. Those two work really well, especially towards that right wing when they kind of drift towards the right. I think they pair up really well.
And you just pointed something out that it almost slipped my mind, but I'm so glad you mentioned it. How much of a difference, and because we've talked about wing play, right, and how it hasn't been fantastic throughout the season, but with Cordova and Brunetta starting together, you force to play more towards the middle to then fluctuate outside.
Yeah.
Instead of pushing the ball out and then bringing it back in as a last resort after, you do your one-on-one, or if you're not able to, you push the ball even further back to the right back and then, back to the middle to reset the play. How much of that needs to happen moving forward, and that trust that Pauno has to have with Cordova and Brunetta playing together, so the game becomes more centralized and you take advantage of probably the strongest aspect of our squad, with Carioca being out, Pizarro stepping in, Nando, Brunetta, Cordova, and then, the shuffle play that Gignac or Nico can have in that role.
If we can get Brunetta to play at least at the level he played versus Xolos, and Cordova maintaining his level, I think we're going to be dangerous. Just because when Brunetta's dialed in, he's such a nightmare for center backs, for the central defending mids. He just ties up so many people. And so him getting so much attention allows guys like Cordova and Gorriaran to move into space and then have opportunities to shoot or make excellent crosses. And so I think Brunetta's going to be critical to our success.
Yeah, couldn't agree anymore. Couple of stats, guys, or like, I don't know, things to mention about the Xolos game that I want to point out. Marcelo Flores scoring his 10th goal for Tigres, second during this season. Good production. I mean, for a kid that doesn't get very much minutes, his true position is not an attacker. 10 goals, that moves him up in some of the rankings as far as other players who have played the forward or 9 position that didn't even score that many goals. And so shout out Marcelo, 10 goals. Another thing to highlight, Nahuel Guzman is, with that shutout, he became now, let's see, 150 goals in Liga MX, the first foreigners. So Jesus Corona has 197 in 21 years. Oscar El Conejo Perez has 189 in 26 years. Osvaldo Sanchez has 186 shutouts in 21 years. Adolfo Rios, 167 in 19 years. Javier Ledesma, 163 in 15. And then Nahuel Guzman, 150 in 10 years. Ooh. And then check this stat. This is both of these stats are from Rafael Rivera and Rafa Dato. Nahuel Guzman, 471st game with Tigres, 186 shutouts. So that's all across all competitions. 150 in Liga MX, 122 during regular season. 82 of them have been on the road, 72 on the road in Liga MX, 12 against Xolos, and then 4 this season. Thoughts and opinions about Nahuel Guzman and entering that conversation. Obviously, he's always been in the conversation for best goalie, especially with all the accolades he's collected. But shutouts and, championships, that alone puts you in a very, very special category. And then throw on top Mr.
I think
Osorio.
we've said it before.
Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Osorio also giving him praise after the match. But what I was going to say, he's been in the conversation for so long, but he's never at the forefront just because every other team is jealous of him. every other team wishes they had someone like that on their roster. But they don't. It's Tigres.
Yeah, that's back-to-back games, Lou, with the head coach just throwing us flowers. We forgot to mention it last week, Edgar, but Almada talking about like who wouldn't want to coach a team like Tigres. Juan Carlos Osorio now throwing Nahuel's flowers that he's the most influential goalkeeper in Liga MX. And, that's a funny way of saying the best goalkeeper. So, but I'll take it. But ultimately, people are out there preparing for the worst if Panovich can't handle this. And, they're raising their hand, to be the next tutor in line for that coaching job at Tigres.
Oh man, they would jump at the opportunity for sure. I mean, it's just you're coaching the best talent in Mexico. I mean, it's who wouldn't want that chance? I mean, it would. I think a lot of us think about what this team would look like under Almada, right, or what this team would look like under Osorio. We just all kind of wonder. But going back to Nahuel, man, I mean, I think one thing that doesn't get mentioned enough, and I think it's what makes him the best goalkeeper that's ever played in the league, is how good he is with his feet. The guy can make pinpoint accurate passes with his feet and with his hands, and can start play for you, can play almost like a sweeper. And that sort of stuff is rare to get from a goalkeeper. And so to have a guy like that who's that good with his feet, and obviously, everything else that comes with it, his shot blocking ability, everything else, but to be able to play basically as another center back or in a sweeper position is critical for the stuff that our coaches have been wanting to do under this team.
And that's the thing that I'm hoping, depending what turns out with Tapia, because that alone is like very odd. That I've never seen a negotiation happen that way with Tapia. But that's the one thing, if Tapia does stick out at Tigres and America doesn't just buy him just to take him off our hands, which I could see that happening, and let him ride the bench under Malagon, is that if Tapia already has the physical ability, meaning he's tall, he's got the reflexes, he's like not afraid to play his box, and he's spontaneous the way that he plays as well at times. But if he develop his feet a lot more than what he has at the moment, he could really be special, especially following the leadership and the skill set that Nahuel Guzman provides in that one-on-one training that they do. And that's something that I think that's a highlight of probably our last 5 years. We've had good goalkeepers and a really strong coaching staff of goalkeepers that have polish our goalkeepers even further. And I think if you add also the technological aspect, which we see a lot more now with vlogs and videos of training videos, is that they're applying more technology for quicker reflexes. And I think that not that Nahuel Guzman necessarily needed that, but also has elevated his game with a few things here and there. So I think that that's something to highlight. I think our goalkeeping overall has been a forte for us over the last few years. Anything else, fellas, for that Xolos game? Anything that sticks out that I missed? Did we cover all the
What other
substitutions?
interesting?
Go ahead.
Subs, yeah, but one other interesting thing that I ran across Twitter: every time Marcelo Flores scores, we win.
Really? Wow. I mean, when
been good luck.
When did he score a hat trick? When was the hat trick that he scored? Or he got a hat trick? No,
it's a brace. It's a brace, no?
When did against Mazatlan last year he didn't score a hat trick, or was it brace? Could be wrong. Just throwing out maybe wishful thinking. Nonetheless, that's solid. That's something definitely to highlight. He just needs some minutes. I mean, I think if he gets a solid 20 minutes per game, I think he could give you what he needs to give you, because he doesn't have to work the game and find his pace and his tempo in a game. With 20 minutes coming in the second half, he gives you that quick, burst of either gambetta, speed, trying something different, because the game already has had its own course of pace and worked, and tactical aspect that he just needs to come and disrupt, right? I think that Linus provides a more tactical, follow the game plan type of wing play, but Marcelo comes in and just like shatters the game plan because he's got raw talent like we've talked about in the past. So I think if he just gets 20 minutes moving forward, I think he could also be a great factor in Liguilla.
He's a disruptor, and I think he's picked up a few things from Gignac that's been interesting. He has that on the left wing where he acts like he's going to go up the wing, but then does the cut back towards the middle and takes the shot. I think he picked that up from Gignac. And I think a lot of times that's there for him because people respect his ability to get to the end line and be able to make a cross. And so they respect that and they give him the middle. And so he's not afraid to go towards the middle and take shots. And so he gives us something different than some of our other wingers don't. And he like I said, he's a disruptor. He's the type of guy that's kind of a wild card. You never know what he has up his sleeve. And I think that's kind of fresh. That's something that you definitely want out of a winger.
Yeah, he definitely takes the most shots probably per minute that when he gets his playing time out of it, the rest of them. Even if the shot's nowhere near goal, the dude's trying.
Exactly. And a lot of times, his teammates will, you could, in the Cholos game, you could see some of them saying, "Hey, you should have passed it," but you gotta give him props. That sort of thing is what leads to
greatness.
opportunities, to goals, to being better. That's what makes Gignac, right? Sometimes you see Gignac take a wild shot and you're like, why did he do that? Like, why is he attempting that? But he has that in him. He has that same type of attitude that Gignac has, where he's not afraid to go take a bicycle kick or a half volley or shoot from 25 yards out, and that's what makes Gignac different. I think that ultimately that's what will make Flores different. I think Gignac sees a lot of that, what he sees in himself in Flores, and I think that's also been a key partnership off the pitch, where Gignac is kind of building him up, right? He's coaching him along because he does see that kind of atrevimiento, that picardía that he brings, that wittiness that he has.
Yeah, I mean, can you blame him? He had to spend his last couple of seasons with Linus, and he didn't see no progression. So he had to find somebody new. Now I get what you mean, though. I think that also is a direct influence of how like more aggressive you have to be, and that's influenced by the European experience that he had, right? Like you're taught to take that shot. You're taught to take the difficult shot because ultimately, you got to have that picardia, that aggressiveness and willingness to fail at times because you got to try, that amazing play or that amazing shot. And so I think that that's a natural confidence ability of Marcelo, knowing that he has, talent, and obviously, respect, to him as well, because when you're around, you got Carioca about 10, 15 yards behind you, and then Gignac 10, 15 yards in front of you, and either of them can be yelling at you because you took a shot when you could have passed the ball or crossed the ball. Like that takes guts ultimately. Yeah. So I think that that's something to be, respectful of Marcelo, and, still finding a way to score goals. Like we talked about 10 goals during his time in limited minutes. I think that's something that's definitely something to highlight there. Edgar, want to move on to the next segment?
Yeah, absolutely. So up next, we've got match day 16 and 17. The regular season of Liga MX is coming to a close, and of course, the calendar is organized in such a phenomenal fashion that we're fortunate enough to see two matches this week before a long hiatus until the real Liga kicks off. Tigres will close the season facing off against the first and second place teams in the league table, hosting Toluca this Wednesday, and then traveling to the capital to face the best Cruz Azul side we've seen in a very long time. Can Tigres climb higher in the standings?
What the heck were the Liga MX officials thinking, bro? Like, what are we doing with this?
Bro, this league needs a major overhaul up top, bro. Like the people running this show, man, what a clown show. Like we need like whole new federation officials up there. It's just so embarrassing, man, and it makes us look like we're Bush League, man, like we're your Sunday morning league, you know?
Yeah, like I would be like extremely upset if I'm like Cruz Azul or even Toluca who have maintained like form throughout the season, and then like you stop playing for 3 weeks, and then like potentially you may lose because like you lost momentum and you lost your form
Yeah.
because you're not getting the playing time. And then you got teams like Tigres who, has just sort of maintained pace, even the Rayados who maintain pace, San Luis who have 3 weeks to like, or even America catching heat, like, oh man, we got 3 weeks to get our players back, to get in shape, to get informed, to like go over like, what we need to do in Liguilla and game plan. Like, I feel like that could be a really, bad turn of events for a team like Cruz Azul, for a Toluca to have that type of time off. I think it doesn't really do us bad. I think ultimately for us, Tigres personally, I think it's actually a good thing because you get, more work in, even though you might not have had the best results in terms of like being, having good performances, being spectacular as far as like playing good football. But I think it gives you more work. And, we haven't really shown where we have been great anyway. So I think that, we're not really missing much. And I think that we gain more from more practice time, more film time to analyze our opponent when we do know our opponent as we face off in Liguilla, whoever that may be. But just a terrible management aspect for Liga MX. It just makes no sense.
We're gonna
And
get an Atlas San Luis final watch. Ratings
Yeah, it's
would be
awful.
like 200,000 viewers or something, you know.
yeah, no kidding, dude. It's just bad, man. Like Peter brought it up a while, I think a week ago or something like that, and I didn't even make sense of it because I was like, "There's got to be something off there." And then when I saw Edgar mention it, I was like, "Oh my god!" Like it's just poor management, man. Poor management, and then just old school. Like, it's like these guys still think that they're like in the early 2000s, and
Yeah,
like
bro.
things
They're
just
living in the Netscape Navigator era, bro. Internet Explorer era.
and like the thing is just like they are not seeing that the product is dying. Like
Yeah.
nobody's going to these games.
Yeah, it's sad when baseball is becoming the national pastime in such a soccer crazed country.
Yeah.
And what they don't understand, bro, is that now NFL is moving in.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of cats now watching NFL in Mexico. And like really you want to take on that battle? Right? Do you want to really go up against NFL and NBA and MLB and now the local baseball league? It's just they need to act quickly. They just don't realize how urgent the situation is. If you don't act quickly, I mean, literally the sport could go way
Tank.
down. You know,
Yeah.
you could be like four or fifth down, kind of like what the NHL is in the U.S. now, right? Like where everybody watches everything else but hockey, and so I think it's going in that direction. And sadly, you might end up being like a two-team league, right? Where it's just people watching Tigres and then some people watching America.
Yeah, and then you add on also the attention span of people. You add on like the entertainment aspect of what people can now watch with all the streaming services, that movies, shows you can hop into. So like the time commitment is also a factor. And then if you go 3 weeks without like I just feel like they're just letting the product go and not paying attention to the details. and obviously that transpires over and bleeds over to the national team and development. And, sooner or later, we're just going to be talking, like you said, about, you know, how it has been the last couple of seasons. And you get, 4 or 5 teams doing good for the most of the season because they have the best players, they have the fans in the stands, and that's it. After that, it's just like you get your Viernes Botanero, but times 17 every week.
And it's everything, man. I mean, like, look at the way we do VAR reviews. It like 4 minutes, 5 minutes to do a VAR review, and then they're like, oh, we'll just tack it on at the end. But people don't want to make that commitment. You know, games in the U.S. sometimes are at 10 o'clock, and you're staying up past midnight on a weekday. Like, obviously, you didn't think it through, right? And then you're wasting everybody's time with bad refereeing and bad VAR reviews and that sort of thing. I mean, it's just everything needs to get cleaned up. Everything needs to be improved. The TV rights situation needs to get fixed. Nobody knows where the games are on. Some teams decided that they wanted to do on YouTube on TV Caliente or something, and yeah, you can watch it in Mexico, but you can't watch it in the U.S. And it's just everything's kind of all in disarray,
Yeah, we need you to go down there, Lou, and get everybody in line.
bro.
What do we think about our games, though? We have two important matches. Obviously, Toluca at home, and Toluca has been on a tear, especially Paulinho. Sort of having the Gignac-like experience at Toluca, just like we had it here with Tigres, just tearing it up as far as goals, assists, the type of goals that he's scoring. Alexis Vega seemed like he's back. What a turn of events. Like, for a while, we didn't want Alexis Vega, and we ended up with Antuna. And now Alexis Vega is balling again, back on the national team. And, could have been a nice piece there, but I digress. And then, obviously you got young players like Marcel Ruiz, Paiva also implementing his style of play. What do we feel about point situation, right? Like, again, we mentioned it last week when we were recording. A lot of us thought we were going to get just 3 points. So someone said 3 ties. Someone said, a victory and against Cholos, and then 2 losses in the next couple of games. Someone said 5. I myself said 5. I honestly thought we were going to beat Toluca and tie against Cholos and tie against Cruz Azul, and I'll get into that in a bit. But what do we feel about Toluca coming into our house this Wednesday at El Volcan?
It's one of those games that can go either way, right? I think a lot of it is going to depend on how well we defend. If we can stay solid defensively, do well in transitions defensively, I think we have a decent shot. To me, it looks like a game that we might tie. I see us leaving with 1 point, and I think the Cruz Azul game. Don't want to get ahead of myself, but I think the Cruz Azul game might be a tie also. So I think we're looking at 2 points.
So 5 points, 5 out of the 9 that
Three plus 2, so five. Five out of
Okay.
9.
Edgar, what do you think before we get into the actual match? What do you think about point situation as far as these last 2 games?
So I think it'll be 1 win and 1 draw. It just really depends how we line up against Toluca. Will kind of determine which game's a win, which game's a draw. But now I feel like the Cruz Azul game might be the win, just because the last time a team had 40 points, Cordova came in and made a mess of things.
Bro, don't do them like that. We might have some haters watching our pod.
Oh man, the neighbors are gonna be upset, Edgar.
Bro, but good point there. I mean, I just think that Toluca game, I definitely get your point, Lou, about like how it can go either way. I'm seeing a shootout. I'm seeing a good shootout. I think Nahuel Guzman is not going to be the game where he gets a shutout. I think we might see a 3-2. We might see a 3-1. 3-1 meaning they win and they spank us at home. 3-1 we win, spank them at our house. But I think ultimately we do see some goals happening in that game. And one of the things that I've observed from watching Toluca is defensively they're not great. And Thiago Volpi can be a liability at goalkeeping. I think he's excellent with his feet. I think he's excellent at certain aspects of his game. But He's not very reliable at times in the air. His reflexes at times haven't been the best. So I think that the game plan should be to attack Toluca and be the aggressor at home, especially playing at home and having the fan base, which we might not have a good amount of fan base because now that it's a middle of the week, it's a work day, we might not have all the people there because of traffic and whatnot. So it might not be a complete sellout, but ultimately you're at home. You want to push and be the aggressor. You want to attack because Toluca hasn't been the best defensive team or one of the best defensive teams. And so I think that is the way to earn a victory against them. You attack them and you go for a shootout. I don't think, a guy like Paulinho can't, it's going to be a really good match to see him against Joaquin. Yep. And even Diego Reyes, and then that pressure that Pizarro can bring in the midfield as well. So I think it's going to be a really good match, a straight shootout.
I agree. I think it's going to be really interesting. There's some really good matchups on the pitch. And I'm hoping it doesn't turn into a shootout because I don't know if a shootout benefits us. I don't know if we come out on the winning end of a shootout, but I think you might be onto something there where it just ends up being that way because of what you mentioned.
Yeah, so they've given up 14 goals. We've given up 13, and 6 of them were in 2 games. So I think that's the route to go. Besides that Mazatlan and Rayados game, I think defensively we have been, for the most part, solid throughout the season. And I think that if you really push on Toluca, because they've scored 33 goals, bro, like that's a lot of goals. And, the most goals, Cruz Azul has 36, and then it's them with 33, and then we have 22 ourselves. So not the best as far as offensive production, but I think that being at home, you have to attack them again. I think that's what the game plan should be. I don't think you're going to be able to contain them, and especially if they come in and possess the ball and move around offensively, I think they got some weapons that they can exploit. Edgar, what do you think? What do you think the game plan should be, and what something that Paunovic should have an influence for this match?
Definitely do have to be sure that we have our best back line. I mean, kind of jumping back to what Dennis said, what's not going to happen. Pizarro, I'm sorry, not Pizarro, but having Garza, Aquino, Joaquim, and Angulo back there, that would be a really interesting combination to see against Toluca. I mean, it's not going to happen, but that would be a really good game to entertain a modification like that.
Yeah, because it would give us pace, I think, especially to keep up with their attackers with Joaquim and Angulo back there. It'd be nice. That's a good possibility there. Dennis, if you're listening, now we're talking about this lineup. How much of a chance do you think that could come to fruition, Lou? Do you think that happens, or do we stick it out with Reyes back there?
Yeah, I don't think it's gonna happen. I mean, it's a good idea. I've always wanted to try Angulo there, but I just don't see Pauno doing it. I've never seen any of our coaches try it out, so it's far fetched.
It's gonna happen when Angulo's at the end of his career, like Torres Nilo.
All slow and everything, can't even move around. A little overweight, little on the chunky side.
Yeah, dude, that's how Torres Nilo ended up being. I mean, Torres Nilo didn't get chunky or anything, but I thought that
strikers flying past him.
Yeah, dude, I thought that was I was like, okay, we just experimenting out here now.
Honestly, I think it's the height issue is what's causing that to never happen. Yeah. I think there's just that. I think coaches are worried that he's gonna get constantly beat in the air.
Yeah. It's a good test, though, man. For whoever gets to play, whether that's Pizarro and Joaquin, but I know it's going to be Joaquin and Diego Reyes. It's a good test because you got Toluca's offensive firepower, and then you got Cruz Azul offensive power, but Cruz Azul has more of a team game, right? They don't have as many superstars. They're all more on the role player aspect, but they're really well coached. And so they've had a lot of great offensive success, but ultimately Toluca has just more of an individual firepower. And so these next two games are going to be key, especially with Rafa Carioca being out. So we know Pizarro is going to start in the middle, and Diego Reyes and Joaquim are most likely the two center back pairings. So it could be a really good test of how we move forward into Liguilla and how to use these guys as far as form. If maybe Carioca loses his spot to the middle, which, may not happen. But again, it just gives you a better sense of how to approach Liguilla as you having a two-game elimination and you're trying to beat teams, more strategically as opposed to just, looking to go out there and play and get a result. I think strategy comes more into play and player utilization comes into play. So I think, again, really good way to end the season. Maybe we don't get, the best results, but it would allow us to prepare to have the best approach, in my opinion, if, with playing these guys.
And we need to get used to getting Reyes back there and Pizarro at the central mid, because I'm not trying to jinx it or anything, but hamstring injuries are one of those injuries that's really hard to get over. Like you get back and then you pull your hamstring again, and then it's one of those that if you don't rest it enough, it's hard to come back full from it. And I think it's 2 weeks. I don't know if 2 weeks is enough, to be honest with you, or two games rest on a short week is really enough. But we do have that long break, and we'll see how he practices and everything. But it could be one of those injuries that nags Carioca the rest of the season into Liguilla.
Agreed. But we get, like you said, Edgar, we get a team with 40 points, but we don't even know if we're going to play them at their stadium. They're having issues with their stadium at the moment, security and logistics, as far as their home games. And then
it's gonna be like at the old Lobos WAP Stadium or something, bro. Some university ground, like intramural field or something.
Well, they move. America's going to be playing at Puebla.
Gonna be like 2,000 spectators in the stands. Dirt all over the pitch.
I saw I saw a meme that said the stadium of Puebla is finally going to get people in with America going to play there. So
that's messed up.
Yeah, so we'll play at home Wednesday against Toluca, and then we'll go on the road against Cruz Azul, but we don't know where exactly yet. So be on the lookout for that information. Most likely will probably get announced either tomorrow or, even Wednesday or Thursday. So we'll see. But I think that our team, everything we wanted, maybe we didn't get throughout the regular season with the other 15 games. But I think we may be getting it here, and we'll know what our team is made of. And I know that after the Clásico, and it wasn't even so much because of it was Rayados, but I knew that, like, Panovich was not made for our squad. But I highly believe in our players' skill set. I highly believe in our leadership of our older players. And so that is what's, like, maintaining hope to make some noise in the playoffs. Maybe we don't get the chip, but at least, go out on a decent run in Liguilla, and I think that's going to be due to the players. So, and again, these teams that we're playing is going to be a good test for us as the fan base to really analyze if we really are going to make some noise as we head into Liguilla. We'll see, though.
And as far as, and I know we haven't been happy with the way we're playing this season, but as far as points on the table, on the standings, we're right on pace to beat what we did last season, which was 31 points. I think in the overall over 40,000 foot view of it, I think we're still right where we want to be. We're likely, if we finish strong, we could finish in the top four, and then battle for a spot. So I trust the boys; they'll put it together in spite of bad head coach.
Yeah, it's just really interesting to analyze that. Even though what you're saying is that we're still okay as far as point production. We literally lost against the worst teams during the season. Yep. Literally 15, 16, 17 place teams. And if those were turned into victories or positive points, then could be talking a completely different conversation here.
Yeah, we could potentially already be in the top, in the high 30s, right?
Yeah,
37, 38 points easily.
and really fight for that first seed.
Yeah.
Um, but I think second or third seed is really good place to sit as far as you face Liguilla. It gives you the home advantage up until like the last couple of rounds, meaning semis and finals. And so I think that as I think as long as you get the home advantage during the quarterfinals, that's a good start. After that, it's a toss up of who can win because you got the best teams, fighting for the championship. So at that point, it doesn't matter if you have home court or home field advantage or not. You just gotta play to win. Um, yeah, I think predictions for me as far as that Toluca game, I'm sticking to that 3-2 victory. I'm going. I think we open up the scoreboard. What do you guys think?
With the Cruz Azul game, I'm gonna go a tie, and
Okay.
Toluca, I'm gonna go tie as well.
Okay. Edgar?
So I'm gonna say we draw against Toluca, probably a 2-2, and we beat Cruz Azul wherever it is we play.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going 1-1 against Cruz Azul. So victory at El
We'll see
Volcan.
if Cruz Azul rests some players too.
Yeah,
If
that's
they
what I'm
have first
thinking.
place cinched up, they might rest.
Yeah, they have nothing to play for in the last game of the season. You can get some of your best players hurt. You've already got the first seed, completely secured. So I just don't see, But then again, we lost against the worst teams during the season, so that might not even matter either. So we just got
Yeah.
to play intelligently and get the best result we can to see if we can beat Toluca out for this second spot and not allow the rest of the guys to climb up our spots and give up our top four, because if our results don't go in the best way, we could easily drop to sixth place after the Toluca game, and we don't want to do that for sure. Last part, Edgar, so we can head out.
Alrighty. Let's see. Las Amazonas wrap it up. Tigres Femenil versus Pachuca recap. Sunday night, Las Amazonas played their final match of the regular season versus Las Tuzas in a match that concluded with a 2-1 victory. Ovalle scored another phenomenal goal with Tigres Femenil, but Natalia Collins stole some spotlight as she scored her very first goal with Las Amazonas. The team finished the season in second place of the league table with 41 points, only behind Rayadas by one single point. Their next opponent will be Pumas Femenil in the quarterfinals.
Rotations, Lou. Rotations happening in this game. We had Ana Cesa with Jimena Lopez pairing in the center back position, with Anika Rodriguez at her usual spot, Nati Villarreal playing on the left side. You had a non-traditional pairing in the midfield with Jenny Hermoso, Alexia Delgado, and then Alison Gonzalez and Anadia playing up top with Demby and Ovalle playing out wide. Injuries there, obviously. Ferral also suspended. Greta was out due to an injury. Mari Carmen was carrying injured, probably after going to the national team, and then Ferral being suspended from that Juarez game. Did you have any doubts about that lineup, especially a team like Pachuca, who has had a good season? What did you think of the selection of players, and then obviously what transitioned onto the field?
No, as far as lineup, I trust the talent we have. I've been saying it all season that it doesn't matter what 11 you put out. There's talent in the starting 11. We have plenty of depth. Even our youngsters are top notch. Players like Dady Ramirez and Mane Gonzalez. I mean, they're fantastic. To me, the issue continues to be Mila Martinez. As long as we don't have good coaches training our players midweek, we're going to continue to see the same issues. So that, to me, the starting 11 is good. Like for example, Natalia Collin, in my opinion, hasn't had enough minutes this year, this season, and partly due to circumstance. Right, she's been with the national team quite a bit. Traveled to Colombia for that Youth World Cup, but there's plenty of talent on this squad, and I think you have a lot of options as far as who you want to play in different slots. There's several players that can play different positions. So to me, that starting 11 that we put out, enough to beat Pachuca, and really enough to beat 98% of the teams in this league. So for me on that end, there wasn't any concern at all.
What do you think, Edgar? Also, impressions about the game, getting a 2-1 victory on the last day of the regular season for Las Amazonas.
Definitely a better result than I expected, given the absences that that we had with Mari Carmen out and just other players. But I think Ceci really had a phenomenal game. I think it could have ended ugly if it weren't for her. But we did well. I think this team is ready for Liguilla. Obviously, there's still the coaching issue where you're not getting the best out of all of your players, but I think we'll do just enough to manage and get through.
Yeah, a lot of ups and downs this season as far as form. Uh, for a while, we had the number one spot secured. We hadn't lost a game, and then we ended up losing to America, and then we dropped against Juarez. Maybe even missing one game there. But ultimately, just a lot of ups and downs during the season. And you guys hit the nail on the head. It's due to the coaching and the management of some of these players, and not management because some players were not included a lot of the games. So just we could be better, and I think that we're just selling ourselves short as an organization, as a club. With Mila running the team, we could be a ton better with the talents that we have on our squad. But got to write it out, got to support. But in this game, particularly, Lou, with all those lineup changes that we mentioned, I think we created a good amount of chances offensively. Where even in that second half, we were missing a lot. Tembi and Ovalle, I think my only criticism for them, which I think that have been some of our best players this season, is that their decision making at times is a little bit like could be better in terms of like setting up an assist. Themby in this game particularly, she had a ton of breakaways that she could have like taken more advantage of, and that's happened throughout the regular season. Specifically, I'm talking about that play where Ovalle gets ran over that should have been a penalty kick, and obviously we complain and we like to make a statement about the fact that the penalty kick wasn't called, but Demby should have put that away easily, especially with the breakaway speed that she has. And, has scored goals and she knows how to find the back of the net. She found a goal in a similar fashion for the national team against England, last week. So I think that, the decision making of some of our best players with how quickly they are and their high pace also hurts them a bit in terms of setting up their teammates at times. And I can't really complain too much about Ovalle because she's our best player always, and she gets us going, and she's so reliable to break through, and she did it in this game with her golazo. But not sure if you saw what I saw with that comment there, but just I feel like we got to fix that as we head into Liguilla, especially with the amount of chances that we missed and how quickly that game could have easily been tied at the end there with Pachuca.
Yeah, not a great night for Themby in particular. I think between those two, between Ovalle and Themby, I think Themby was the one that missed the most opportunities. And then she missed at least one or two sitters that were like, man, like you got to put that away. But she's one of those players that you trust will come back strong. The talent she has is just so much more than the defender she's facing week in and week out. So I think that's one player that doesn't concern me because I just know she'll continue to generate chances, and when the chances come, she'll put them away. I trust that she's going to get better. Some of the issues, especially with Ovalle, I think is having the pressure to put the team on your shoulders at all time, and that once again comes down to bad coaching. When coaches don't set you up for success, right? When the system you're putting together during the week to face opponents is not properly prepared, not properly synced, not properly trained, then you're forcing individualities on the pitch, which means you're forcing individual performances. And so then you're placing so much weight on these players to deliver that then they try to go above and beyond, right? Try to do things all on their own without making that extra pass or without making that extra sacrifice. Giving it up because what do you want to do? You just want to score. You want to put the team on your shoulders, and that's coaching. That's stuff you work on during the week. And when players have the confidence that the entire machine is operating properly, then you start to make the extra pass, right? You see it in really well coached teams that they make really good decisions. Why? Because during the week they trained it. And so those issues to me are not an Owaye issue, a Thembi issue. It's an issue with the coaching. And I think until we replace our coach, we're not going to see an improvement. Because going back to our previous coaches, you didn't see that in Owaye, right? The decision making in Owaye was a lot better. She took the shots when she needed, but she also passed when she needed. But now there isn't that trust. Why? Because a lot of times you feel like your teammate's not going to be in the right spot. You feel like you got to take the shot. And so all that stuff is being influenced by poor coaching.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't have said that word better. Um, Edgar, do you have anything to add as far as some of the players that stood out for you in this game? I know you mentioned Ceci Santiago, Natalia Colin, also that Lou brought up. Anything that you'd comment on about some of these players that played in this match? Jocelyn Montoya made a comeback.
Yeah, Montoya did really well. I was left impressed with what I saw from her, and Anika being consistent with her minutes as well.
What do we feel about Allison? Did we to see an improvement in this game?
Not really, man. I mean, I honestly I feel like we've lost Alisson for the season. At least until we get a new coach, I just don't see her being an option for us.
Yeah, and then you Montoya, you said you like what you saw Edgar, and like I'm always a fan of her. I think she's definitely a different type of player, and again, she could be an excellent sub for us. But she played her at right back. I'm like, bro, like what?
That's
Like,
been something happening a lot this season.
yeah, and she doesn't play. She's going to play like outside back, whether that's right back or left back. That's just so wild to me. So again, bad coaching by Mila Martinez and everything that she's got going on at our club. That's not for the better. Who was the best player of the season? I know that might be an easy answer, but who would you think was the best player, Lou?
It's gonna be kind of weird because I don't think the stats agree with it or anything. I'm a big stat guy, but to me, the best player has been Ana Seiza. I just love her versatility. I love that she can play center back. I love that she can play left back, left full back. Can even slide her into central defensive mid. Her timing is fantastic. I mean, I think she's a perfect player. If we had a different coach, man, this Ana Cesar would be shining so much. To me, it's just such a waste what's going on because Ana Diaz is actually pretty good too. Ana Diaz reminds me a lot of Fish when Fish first came in her first season, and we're not making her look good at all. Our system's not making her look good. So to me, Ana Cesar has been just one of those players that's been a fresh air in my lungs. I think she's got a lot of potential with this squad if we can get some decent coaching.
This might be a hot take here because it's not true reflection quite yet, but I think that Ana Diaz has more upside than Mia Fisher.
You
She
might be onto
brings
something.
she brings a different type of player. She's just I mean they're very different. Mia Fisher just clicked, man. She just clicked, and then Uchenna and like
Maria
Ovalle,
Sanchez
Maria
a little
Sanchez,
bit.
Ovalle, like she had everybody like feeding
Yeah.
her, and like obviously the
Better
league where
coaching.
the league where it was at, like, wasn't as good as it is now. So I think obviously Mia Fisher stood out, but with rightfully so. I think she was, very talented. It just seemed like for the most part, Ana Diaz, like you said, has been like sort of gotten the short end of the stick, even with some of the playing time and even the bad coaching of not putting these players in the best positions, or allowing them to shine in their best position. So something to look out for. Ana Diaz is a very, very good player. I think that she could develop, and with the right coaching staff, she could be even much better than she has been for us this season. Edgar, who would you say has been the best player for you, or was the best player for the season?
I mean, maybe it's a bias, but for me, it was for sure Ovalle. Just the consistency, the carrying the team. I don't think we would have finished where we did in the league standings if it weren't for Ovalle. I think she deserves a lot of recognition for that.
15 goals for the season.
Yeah, can't go wrong with that answer, man.
Yeah.
Plus assists. You're not counting assists too, which she contributes a ton there too.
Who was the most improved player this season?
Honestly, I saw Nati Villarreal getting a little better this season.
Okay.
I liked her performance at left fullback. But
You know why
honestly,
I asked that
I feel like
specifically?
everybody digressed.
Yeah. Oh, I asked that specifically because I remember you saying that, like, I think it was like a month ago. You said that no player has really gotten better under Mila
No,
Martinez.
no.
Edgar, do you have any opinion there?
That's a very difficult question.
You could argue Ceci Santiago, maybe.
Okay.
Towards the end of the season, I think, yeah. I mean, when we brought in Itza, that was supposed to be to compete.
Okay, I'll give you that. I'll entertain that. You know who I thought was going to have a much better season and like would have been, like, for me, the obvious answer for most improved would have been Alexia Delgado. I think, getting more games under her belt, being around better players, she would have stuck out more. I don't think she's a bad player, but I think that she was going to take the next step this season for us. I think Mari Carmen, you can argue she would be in the discussion for best player as well with Ovalle for me, but I'm really a big fan of her aggressive style of play. She's never afraid to take on players. She's always defending and in your face against, when other players try to, like, one up our players. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I could truly identify a most improved player. Even off the bench, I felt like there was not somebody that really made a huge difference in how we played. Um, Anika Rodriguez, I think, was more involved, and maybe she could be awarded that award for most improved because she came back from an injury at the end of last season. So, she showed some good form, but I don't know. I mean, I feel like we really don't have a most improved player this season.
No.
What about disappointment? Who was the biggest disappointment besides the coaching staff?
Stephanie Mayor.
Okay.
I feel like,
yeah.
And you could throw Alison Gonzalez in there too. But to me, Stephanie Mayor, with the players surrounding her right now, should be a lot better, but has been very poor, in my opinion. In a lot of ways, has kind of hindered our squad because Mila continues to play her, and she's forced Jenny Hermoso to drop deeper because she's taking up that slot. So to me, Mayor has been one of those players that's hurt us quite a bit by being inserted a lot into that lineup, into the starting lineup. And then Alison Gonzalez obviously has missed a ton of sitters this year. So to me, those two are the candidates.
Okay. Edgar?
Yeah, I think for me, Mayor, it's kind of been a sharp decline in overall performance and contribution. And, Mila Martinez just doesn't help the case at all. It just makes it worse.
Yeah, it's just, Man, we could be so much better. Which leads me to ask you guys this question: how much belief do you have in this team making the final?
The way the bracket's set up, we would face America in semis, right?
Yeah, most
Because
likely.
it's two and three,
Yeah.
and Rayadas would get more than likely Pachuca. So I think we're getting the short end of the stick in semis. To me, America right now is the team that's the one to beat, in my opinion,
Yeah.
and they're
They
the
caught.
better coach. They're the better coach squad. I mean, you can't count our team out just because we have so much talent, and obviously there is that pride element. We know we have a bunch of competitors on that squad, and they know what it takes to win. So I trust them in that sense. But when you've been doing things wrong all season, and when I mean wrong, I mean playing incorrectly because we're not coached well, it's hard to beat inconsistency, right? I mean, when you've been inconsistent, it just leads to more inconsistency. It doesn't there isn't like a magic stick, a magic wand you use to kind of just change things overnight. And I think when you're playing a team that's as stacked as America is, and then that's better, way better coached than you are, I think you risk that you might lose. So to me, that's a 50-50. It's a toss up of making the final or not. We are the second seed, so we would close at home. And traditionally, when we open at El Azteca, we've had really good performances. So we'll see. But I mean, right now, if I was a betting man, I would probably say we go down in semis against America.
How do we get here, man? Both squads, bad coaching, relying on individual performances to get you out of games and out of bad situations, and then even like same scenario going into Liguilla, second or third, spot area in the standings, and then not being in the best form overall, and then again, relying on individual performances to take you to the promised land.
You know, there's been signs, and I think as a fan, I've kind of ignored them. But there's been signs that our top guys, our top, the top brass in the organization maybe aren't as sharp as I thought they were, and maybe they're not as efficient as I thought they were. And I think these last several months we've starting to see that maybe they're just not as good, and they're not as great as we thought they were, or at least I thought they were. And just going back now and looking at some of the things, that whole thing with the stadium, right? Announcing, oh, we're getting a new stadium, and it ended up being just bogus. To me, that kind of starts to show, and then the way the Siboldi thing was handled. There's been signs showing that they just don't have their ducks in a row. And so when people running the show don't have their stuff together, it just trickles down, right? You don't get the best coaches, you don't get the best staff, and ultimately that doesn't lead to success. Uh, We've been so lucky that we've had a base going back, what, 7 years at least, of really strong, good players, good leaders on both squads. You look at the men's fantastic leader, you look at the women's fantastic leaders, and I think that's kind of kept us together. If we hadn't had leaders like that on both squads, I think we might have fallen apart at some point. And so, uh, eventually, I think at the end of the season, once all the dust settles, we need to look at the top guys and say, hey, we might need to replace these people, man,
Yeah,
because it's just a series of events that lead me to believe that they're not the best, and we ultimately need the best up top to be able to get the best talent down below.
yeah. I was gonna say, depending on how we perform in the Liguilla on both ends, the men's and the women's, we could probably come up with things that went wrong during the season on both sides and things that we shoved under the rug, as far as leadership and just management aspect of the two teams, coming to player decisions, even coaching decisions, like things off the field that were just handled poorly. With Siboldi, I mean, I honestly I forgot about the whole stadium part until you brought it up. I can't believe they stood for that, knowing dang
Yeah,
well that there was no concrete plan for this stadium to be built, and it
the
was just
Sancho to Torrado transition was handled poorly.
right.
Not good timing, not well thought out, not well planned out. Just there's just stuff there, man, that's not making a whole lot of sense to me. And to be honest, if the Femenil wins the title, Mila Martinez still needs to go. I mean, if the front office doesn't
Yeah.
realize that the fan base has made the decision for you, then they're completely clueless. Look at the stadium last night, bro. That place was pretty empty,
It has
and
been all
and,
season.
and attendance continues to decline. And so the fans have made the decision for you. They're done with her. So don't make the mistake. Oh, she lifted the cup. We're gonna extend her or let her stay longer. You gotta part ways there, man. I mean, and I know it's like not an easy decision to make, but that's a decision you have to make.
I mean, it was easy enough to let go of Siboldi after back-to-back finals.
They let go of Medina, bro, who had a ton more success, and the team played pretty well. Why not do it with Mila, who frankly hasn't looked that great?
Yeah, I think we definitely
Yeah.
expect more out of our leadership. Okay, we'll close off there. We got a couple from the vault moments that we'll run through. Edgar, you want to finish that part off for us?
Moment that we didn't really touch up on last pod. Certified legend moment. Gignac made 400 appearances with the club after the game versus Pachuca.
Crazy, crazy stat. We're losing you, Edgar. Did we lose him, Lou? Oh,
I
he's
think we
there.
lost him. He's glitchy.
He's glitchy. All right, I'll finish it off.
And then finally,
Oh, there he is. There he is.
the other from the vault moment. Sorry, internet. The final from the vault moment.
We might need to take to breakfast your internet provider, bro. Um, so for our from the vault moments that he touched upon that wasn't very clear. So he highlighted that we didn't touch upon last week about a moment for Andre Pierre Gignac. He completed 400 matches for Club Tigres in the match against Pachuca, and then now he mentioned also that November 11th, 2017, at the Cotton Bowl, Tigres tied 2-2 to Pachuca and lost in penalties 4-5 on the friendlies. The PK scored that night were Juninho, Celarayan, Jimenez, and Valencia. Dueñas was the person who missed. Funny enough, we're about to go and be at the combo once again, playing against Cruz Azul, literally a week after we play them in the regular season. Again, poor planning. Something to add there, from
Yep.
the vault moment is Ener Valencia's birthday was today. Shout out Ener Valencia, who had a really good run for us here, and we still cry about him. Not literally, but a lot of people still talk about the type of signings that we had when he arrived and all the other players that arrived, like Edu Vargas. And I feel like I hear that every week and a half or 2 weeks. I hear like the type of players that we used to sign. So shout out Ener Valencia. Even though it's your birthday today, you get talked about many different times on social media and by our fan base. So ultimately, guys, heck of a pod. Lots of things that we discussed here tonight. We didn't have the full crew, but we wrote it out and we put together our hot takes, our boring takes, our good takes, and all whatever adjective you want to put to our takes. But most importantly, thank you for tuning in, and watching us and supporting us as we continue to do this, and also providing feedback in what we do. And yeah, we'll definitely cheer on Tigres against Toluca this week in a double match against two of the best teams in Liga MX, and hopefully we perform.
Yes, sir. Let's go get it, man.
Alrighty. Thanks again, everybody. Hope you guys have a great night. Have a great day if you're listening to the audio version. Later.
Take care.